ICU, ACU5, how goes it? Apollo Kings, how goes it, bro? Hey, how goes it? Ken Bozak here to talk about Bitcoin and Bitcoin accessories. And today I'm with my bro, Rob McNealy, and he's from TUSC, Network. How goes it, Rob?
It goes really well. How are you doing today, Ken?
I'm doing better than yesterday, man. I think I got like fucking either food poisoning or something. I was eating a bunch of crap that nobody else was eating. They were eating all holiday dinner, and I ordered out. And you shouldn't order food from people that are delivering on a holiday. You should just know better.
Yeah, it's like insulting. That's almost like directly insulting the chef and the waitress before they bring your food out.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, you want to work on the holiday? Cool. Now get in the kitchen and make me a sandwich. Yeah, of course I'm gonna get sick. But other than that, man, I'm feeling good, man. The market's looking healthy today. I looked at my phone for the first time in like 2 days, and Bitcoin's over 7K again. So yay.
Yay. It's I don't even look I don't even look any every day anymore. I
Same.
just find it's too stressful. It's just
And
like I'll just
it means nothing. It's totally meaningless to look at it. It's like watching paint that's already been dried.
yeah, it's funny because we have normal 401k kind of investments, and we look at them like every 6 months. It's like you don't think about crypto. It's like every other hour you're refreshing CoinGecko or something. I think that's just it's just funny, think about it. I'm like, oh, I actually got a lot of money in that 401k, but I don't pay attention to it. But I look at my crypto, and that's more exciting.
Yeah, well, I think it's the percentage, right? The volatility and time difference. Like, 2% gains in your 401k or 20% loss or gains in your crypto. It's like a roller coaster as opposed to like a walk through the park.
Dude, it's like an adrenaline rush, right?
That's a
That
lot
whole
of the reason why
dopamine thing.
people get into this, though, right? It's like it's sort of like the gambling side of investments, right? It's a weird combination of like investment mentality with gambler's rush or gambler's high.
I think that's a really good analogy, and I wish people would understand that a little more too. That crypto, as much as it's interesting, and trust me, I'm all in on crypto. I mean, I'm a big believer. That's why I'm doing a project and been around for a couple of years and still trudging away, even though it's been like this crypto winter forever.
Hey, to
You
be a
know,
crypto winner survivor, bro, should come with a badge of fucking honor. So,
a
congrats on
tattoo.
that.
I'm gonna get a tattoo, um, but I think what ends up happening is people still can't lose sight though that this is high risk investment. And you got to treat it as such. And I know a lot of people, especially younger guys, that are all in on crypto. That like, oh, I'm just all in crypto, and I'm like, do you have any real estate? No, I'm doing that's all crypto. Do you have any traditional investments? Do you have any precious metals? Do you have any artwork? Do you have any investments in businesses? No, it's crypto. I'm like, that's risky as fuck. So, but I get it. But yeah, I think you got to understand what it is too. It's still a really high risk, investment.
I'm that dickhead you were just talking about, though. Like,
I didn't
that's
say they
me.
were dick. I
No,
didn't
well,
say they
I
were
feel
dickhead.
like a dickhead. So I'm saying I'm a dickhead for being all in, but I do have like digital, like, blockchain real estate with Decentraland. I have digital art, like by Josie, tokenized art, like by her, like this. So I do have diversified my portfolio, but it is all of some form of a tokenized asset based uh, file that's on a blockchain. Like I own real estate, I own art, but it's all, and I own gold with Hercules through the Anthem Gold project, but it's all tokens. It's all crypto. I don't actually own real things.
Well, that's good. But if you look at it like that, though, that's still being diversified within an asset class. Now, I just say add a little more other asset
Right,
classes.
but if Google's quantum computer really wants to flex and decide to focus, and it could hurt what encryption methods are already created and these blockchains are basically built on top of. And my whole portfolio could just go to shit because Google figured out quantum computing. Because that's right now like one of the biggest things that's kind of in the tech industry is Google has proven they have a quantum computer that can run. They just haven't really flexed it yet. I'm waiting for them to decide to flex that, but it's power consuming and everything else.
I was just talking to what's his name, Jared Tate at Digibyte the other day, and we were talking a little bit about the quantum threat. And I think I look at it like this. I think SHA-256 is going to go at some point, and the people who have access to that technology will be probably be a quantum based attack that does that, but it's going to be state actors that have access to the quantum computing stuff first, right? Yep. And so, but on the other hand, they're not going to tell you when they crack it either. That's the thing that it wouldn't be like, oh, we broke SHA-256. No, they're going to want to have that competitive advantage, and they'll have broken it and not tell anybody for years and just be snooping around people's stuff. And to me, that's the far bigger risk that I think quantum faces is. But it's also, I'll tell you, Ken, that's the reason I personally am opposed to putting, digital personal information on blockchains like health records or gun registration records, things like that. I oppose that because I believe in someday, whether it be 5 or 15 years or whatever it is, that data will be out there and exposed, and it'll be a lot harder to put that genie back in the bottle on a blockchain.
Yeah, people would just say, well, if something comes out and the blockchain's vulnerable, then just fork it. Well, you don't understand that the previous legacy blockchain still has that information. It still is vulnerable to having its data unencrypted and therefore exposed. And I'm with you. I don't believe much in putting my medical records on the blockchain. Not right now. Maybe if we could get is there any? I know IOTA and a couple of the other projects are claiming to be quantum proof, but are they? I mean, I feel like that's a claim that you can make. Like you're saying your shirt's fire retardant, but just don't put a lighter near it. So that way you can always say these things because there's no way to really say or attack something in a quantum way. So you can always say that you're quantum proof until the moment comes.
Well, if you look at, I think that's anybody who says that, I think it's nonsense. And let's start with how many banks, how many governments, how many major corporations that all have tremendous amount of encryption and security people on staff have breaches now. And so look at the exchanges. Now, you would make the assumption, you would like to think that even crypto exchanges have bank level type encryption and security protocols, yet they're getting breached on a regular basis. So to me, I'm not going to trust that that's the case because, malevolent people that are driven and that are really, really smart and really have access to technology, they're going to do malicious shit. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know, I'm skeptical about that. That's why I think, when it comes to crypto, I'm not a super big fan of, even smart contracts platforms for the future. I think the killer app for crypto is payments personally.
I think things will use smart contracts, but I don't think it'll be, your pacemaker or things to that effect. But I would see like vending machines, stuff like that. Things that basically use the internet today that are still susceptible to bad actors. Like we have those smart billboards, like people still hack them and put Pornhub on the highway because it's funny. But it's still done, and people will still use them, because the risk reward to security ratio is pretty fair. Nathan Hawk in the chat says, "Oh, nuke codes. Nuke codes are more important than Bitcoin. No nation state would harbor a 0 day of that magnitude for long." But once you have found a way to decrypt the nuke codes, you have to physically be in a position to then enter them. So maybe you're right. Nuke codes are more important than Bitcoin in that aspect of like quantum computing and decrypting, but you'd have to implement the actual code. You'd have to have a way to utilize that code. If you could crack SHA-256, you could just sweep and then slowly dump on the market until someone caught on. But yeah, anyway, sorry. Yeah, shout out to Nathan Hawk in the chat.
But I'm so paranoid at this point, though. I don't even like IoT in my house.
Yeah.
So it's been funny because, like, I don't have, I have the dumbest smart TV I could get. I don't even have like a Ring doorbell. My freaking sprinkler system is not even on the internet. I'm it's even hard to find. Like I've been fixing up our house and stuff over the last year or so, and thermostat. I'm buying the cheapest, dumbest thermostat I can buy, and I don't want to be able to have someone break my sprinkler system by hacking. So I'm a little bit of a Luddite. Like I don't have that Ring doorbell. I don't have any talking Alexa stuff in my house. And I think that, at least I'm a little older. So I came from an analog generation. So that stuff doesn't matter to me. But to me, it's like you bring every one of these little boxes into your house. You're just bringing a piece of surveillance equipment into your house, and you don't know who's on the other side of it.
Well, I like how people along those lines, even farther will worry about like getting a chip or something, like the NFC chips that people put in their hands and stuff like that, and they're worried about being microchipped. They're microchipping the babies, but they don't have to microchip you. You hold the microchip in your hand all day. They don't need to put this in your baby. You're gonna buy it and put it in your baby's hand your damn self. So it's like almost to a point doesn't matter if you use like an Alexa or not. It's just I did see that Amazon just started selling the third party applications, the background noise that the Alexas pick up, which is insane. If you can go to Alexa and get your dump. So if you own a Google Home or an Alexa or any of these smart devices, you can go and log into it and get a dump of all of the shit that it has recorded you saying, and damn near none of it is going to be like okay Google or hey Alexa type shit. It's full on conversations, and then they're going to sell that to like Coca-Cola or whoever else.
Well, it's like anything else. If you're not getting paid, you're the product, or if you're getting something for free, you're the product. I heard about, some of those doorbells are now working with the cops. I think it's the Ring, right? Yeah. They're literally giving the cops the data for free. So the cops will push Ring. And to me, that's about as Machiavellian as a corporation can get, right? And it's all for the power. And I'm like, people are putting this on their house voluntarily. And I'm like, I don't even understand at this point why. Like, I don't even know if people can really claim they don't know that that's happening, but they still do it. They still buy the Alexa and all this other stuff. And I'm just like, I don't get it. I just don't understand the thought process behind that. But maybe I'm just too old. I don't know. You're more of a millennial. I'm not. I'm a Gen Xer.
I like using a lot of the convenient, cool, gadgety type shit. It is fun to play with, but then when you start to think about like the worst case scenario type, implementations of like how it could be used against me or how it could be used to, be more cumbersome than convenient in a way, like having a smart car and your neighbor's a smart kid, so he hacks it, and all of a sudden your smart brakes don't work. It's a lot different to hack your brakes than it is to crawl under your car in your garage and cut the brake line, right? So I do think along those lines of like worst case scenarios, but it's almost like, to me, it's almost like the Halloween threat, like there has never been a fucking kid once ever that has been poisoned or bit a razor blade in a Snickers ever. But everybody still talks about it like that's a thing that could happen. So, like, I'm not worried about going door to door and getting candy on Halloween because there's never been an issue. But for some reason, people have that fear in their head that there will be. So, to me, I feel like the good actors, bad actors, whatever, everyone's going to be utilizing this tech eventually. Even the bad actors are probably going to turn white hat because their mom, their kid, everybody's going to be using this tech. And I think with bounty systems and stuff implemented in the future of tech, even the malicious actors will find more beneficial ways of contributing rather than attacking.
Well, I would hope so. I guess it depends on what the motivation is of the bad actor. If it's just purely economic, sure. Pointing out and fixing things that corporate, security guys missed, that's going to be economically very, rewarding. But if you're just a malicious person or a state actor or a terrorist, on the other hand, it's not money based at that point. I was just reading something about like the Tesla walls, power walls, and
they're awesome.
but they're not very secure. And apparently, there was a German company that was. I just saw a thing like the other day about this, that there's a way that they're really easily hackable, and if you hacked into them, you could, like, do as things as innocuous of dumping electricity, basically charging during the day when it's more expensive, and then releasing at night when back into the system. So I mean, reversing the cycles essentially, so it's not economically viable to the point that you might be able to overheat it. I mean, so these kind of things that where every time there's a new technology, everything's Wi-Fi enabled and connected. And to me, I'm getting a little skeptical about any company that wants direct access to something I buy from them. I downloaded an app the other day, and I tried to go into the app, and I really liked the idea for this app. I'm not going to say who it is, but it demanded access to my entire address book, my contacts. And I'm like, there's no option to do it. I even called the person and contacted the person who recommended it, who works for the company. And he's like, well, there's no way around that. You have to upload your contacts. I go, is it just looking at my contacts right now, or am I uploading the whole database to your server? He's like, well, it does go to our server, but we don't sell it. And I go, I can't use your app, and he's like, what do you mean? He goes, we're not giving it away. And I said, but what happens if you get breached?
Right.
And it was like,
not even a breach.
Like
somebody inside just gathers it and sells it, because email data like that's very valuable. Data is like oil.
Exactly. And that's the thing, is that's where a lot of the best hacks come from, where people think it comes from a friend or a family member. And and I think of it this way. I mean, how it is just podcasting, right? You get access to a lot of high level people, right? Well, I do too, and I keep their information in one of my contact books. And I'm like, there's no way I'm uploading that to this app. And so, because I respect people's privacy that I know.
Right.
And to me, it seems ridiculous that people developing an app today don't allow them to not basically give them an opt-out. And what he said to me, which is kind of, well, we had a hard time getting people to use it if they didn't upload their app. Basically, he was saying that if we didn't allow people to upload their contact database to his app, that people wouldn't use the app as much. And I'm like, well, I'm sorry that your economic model is not worth my privacy being breached, or the people that I know's privacy being breached. But hopefully that'll change.
Well, isn't there a way to like do a dummy contact sync? Like you just have two contacts applications on your phone, and when it says sync contacts, you choose the second application, so it's like nobody's in there, so there's nothing for it to see. I've seen some things along those lines for like getting around that stuff on applications, but I see your point.
This sounds like a lot of work.
And Nathan says, I argue that bounties are more probable to turn a white hat into a black hat. And Weston says he used to be a spy, and he can see that. He agrees with Nathan. Hey, Anthem, I see you in the chat. Just shouted you out, bro. Shout out to Hercules.
So he's saying that what would happen is that if there's bounties to find problems, people are more likely to go out and try to make problems.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I don't think that I can see how that would be an expectation, just like you would expect bad actors to poison candy on Halloween, but nobody, like, that's like, I get it, it's an expectation, but I really don't think that that's the reality of it. I think that we would see a more voluntaristic approach to evolution in that sense, where black hats become white hats, in the sense that they realize that this tech encompasses all, as it's starting to now, where if Target gets hacked, there was one person that was involved with the Target the Visa hack that didn't involve a relative, friend, or family member in one of those, what is it, the seven points of connection. Like, at that point, you just attacked somebody within your 7 points of connection. You attacked a friend, family member, or relative in that sense when you hacked Target. And that's how big these breaches are starting to get. So when we see these like WannaCry viruses and things like that start to happen, it starts to get so prominent to the point to where like it starts to happen to the people who that created it, that they know and love, so they try to fix it before it becomes too big of a problem. So I'm hopeful that we see the other direction of that approach, where moving forward, more incubative, more cross-pollination, things to that effect. I I'm not too worried about some individual hacking my doorbell as much as I'm worried about my government hacking it, or not even hacking it, but like trumping up some bullshit to sending in a subpoena to force the hands of Ring to then do something like lock me out of my house or something or whatever. But that's what I'm more worried about.
Well, it's like the data that's, out there. I mean, if and basically it's like this. Anytime there's a data record out there and you're under some kind of criminal investigation, it can be subpoenable. And so, and most major corporations are not going to stand up to a company, or I'm sorry, stand up to the government and refuse a subpoena. I
So
mean,
what
it
if we
just
see
is
more
what it is.
decentralized entities instead of companies where there is no CEO? The blockchain just exists. It runs, and I guess at the least, the most point they could prosecute the miners or public node operators or public devs, but there's no CEO. So that's why if smart contracts did start to exist in that aspect, there wouldn't be anybody to subpoena.
Well, I think this is where, I mean, this is going to get into where our privacy coin's going to end up in the next couple of years. You're already seeing, a lot of exchanges just delist them now.
Yes.
And I predict that that's going to increase. That privacy coins are going to be verboten if you want to deal with the, global banking system in any way. And now here's the thing though, and that sounds like, oh well, who cares? Just do dexes and that kind of stuff. But a lot of dex operators are still single individuals or are still companies that can be attacked. But I think on the other hand, uh, they can still indict you if you're just a developer that put out a piece of software that people are using that can be used to violate sanctions or things like that. So I think if there was a project that already had a tremendous amount of use and utility where people were actually, got adoption and it was, people were actually using that project for buying and selling the services, it would be a different animal. But really, we haven't reached the point where any crypto has really gained a foothold
What do you
when it
think of
comes to.
Augur?
Don't know much about it.
Prediction market, pretty much it could be used as like a hit auction market.
Right.
I talked to
I
Jeremy
haven't followed
Gardner. I talked to Jeremy Gardner, creator of it, a few times, and he doesn't want to dive into it. But I always thought that was interesting that Ross Ulbricht is in jail for creating Silk Road, and Jeremy Gardner's on stage talking about how he created Augur, and I could basically say like, I predict 50 Bitcoin that Rob McNealy dies within 24 hours. And if somebody was to be like, well, I bet that shit happens because I'm going to do it. They bet that it happens, and then they kill you, and then they get the bounty. So it's like the same type of shit. So it's one of those weird, malicious type of blockchain technologies I think about every once in a while when conversations like that come up.
Well, that's why there's a big thing called personal security when you're out in public and working on a project that, and I'm outspoken enough. So I certainly know that people, it's like anything else, if you're a public person, you're going to have haters and people that like you, but people that hate you as well. And that's why I'm a big believer in personal security anyway. I mean,
I'm not worried about my personal security anymore. I just survived a 2-year presidency of the first black president of the United States of America with 0 assassination attempts in a country full of rednecks whose wives probably got caught cheating with a black guy. I feel like I'm living in a weird, glitched out, safe matrix because I see all this shit on the media and, violence and all this stuff to worry. And I have no need to worry. Like I mean, I'm pretty public. I post my trades and shit on like Instagram and stuff, and I go to conferences all the time. And I'm walking around and I see Charlie Lee, or I was on a cruise ship in the middle of the ocean with John McAfee, Roger Ver, Brock Pierce, Charlie Lee, Bobby Lee, Jimmy Song, Tone Vase. The fucking list was huge. I didn't see any security. I saw no security, and I was just like, well, it was comforting at the same time it was concerning, because I'm like, well, damn, if one bad actor decided to do something, could take out a big percentage of all of crypto. And then I start to think, and you were on Bits and Tokens with Tim and them last week, right? And I was talking to Tim about this off the air a little bit. Like, I worry about false flag events at conferences. When I go to a crypto conference and I see all this money in one fucking room and all these CEOs and developers and founders and just it feels like a third of crypto is in one place at one time. I start to worry about like government reaction to like false flag events where like they just have some crazy shooting event happen or something, like it's where it's all like fucking practically staged, and I see no security at these events. You know, I go to LA for a conference or New York City, and there's zero security, like none. We got like bellhops security at most, like mall cop security. But you got billions of dollars walking around, and like Charlie Lee's not worried he's gonna get a gun held to his head at the urinal and send me your Bitcoin or something.
You know, there's always we talked about this in March at our off-chain conference last March, and we had some special forces guys come in and talk about personal security around crypto. Now, this is going to be a problem in the future. If you think about it, part of it is because it's not as big of an issue now because it's so new and there's not that many people. But if you think about it, like what we're advocating, or a lot of people are advocating for, is the elimination of banks and people taking control of their investments at their own house with a physical little thing that looks like this. So the thing is, at some point, you're going to have people that, robbers are going to become more sophisticated as crypto becomes adopted. Now, it's not as big of a deal right now because the mass adoption hasn't happened. But as it does grow, robbing someone, you might be able to get their TV out of their house, right? I mean, that's what a typical robber is. But when they realize that there might be a Bitcoin key and, you can put a gun to a guy's kid's head in front of him and he gets it, releases its keys. And now you got the equivalent of that person's entire 401 life savings now. That's going to become a problem in the future as mass adoption happens. And I think people do need to start thinking about physical security and how they handle their crypto and how they're advertising their wealth and things like that. And yeah, if someone's a billionaire crypto guy and he's walking around at a public event and doesn't have any security, I question his judgment, in my opinion.
Yeah. It's just concerning, and it just kind of weirds me out sometimes. So I'm just like, wow, do you really not have that much crypto? Like are you really not a billionaire? Because I don't see other billionaires in other industries just walking the fuck around. And even movie stars who have a couple $1 million don't just walk around without security.
And I think that, and I was at a conference where I saw some of the people on that list recently here in Utah, last year and stuff, and no security at all. And I'm like, that's crazy. If you are what you say you are, right? Now, I don't know what people's own personal wealth are, but, some people are always attributed this crypto billionaire, that, or whatever. If you're telling me you can't spend, this is how it works with celebrities, right? I mean, if you travel somewhere, you don't always necessarily have your own bodyguard. You'll hire a security company, and they'll pick you up in a car from the airport. You got a guy who's got a gun or two, or a couple guys, and they pick you up and they walk around with you for a couple days. It's a couple grand. I mean, that's what typically happens when you're dealing with public celebrities and things of that nature. You don't think Zuck or Zuck or Bill Gates has major security when they're traveling and going around to these? Of course they do. So to me, it seems ludicrous. And we've already seen a couple examples, especially in Eastern Europe, where they have had people basically do home invasions and then, put guns to people's heads and make them release their keys and steal their crypto.
Yeah, I've seen those articles.
Yeah, it's already happened. It just is not widespread because crypto is not widespread yet. But I think if you're successful in a project, you probably need to be thinking about that. And if you're not, I think you're living in a bubble. And unfortunately, a lot of people do. And when one of those guys does run into a problem, it's going to be a major, major problem. And I think it's inevitable, personally.
No, it is.
That's just my opinion.
This is like the slogan of Bitcoin, right? Be your own bank. You do understand that you're telling your grandmom to be your own bank. The bank is their own security guard, the manager, you're telling your grandma, protect your own money. Take all of, if she has $100,000 in her retirement, you're telling her to take it out and put it under a mattress and then just stand at the front door with the beware a dog sign to scare no, that's not going to work moving forward. And I do think of custodial solutions that are third party insured and things I would guess things like Celsius Network is kind of a perspective I see of the bank of the future, where I'm not saying don't hold your keys. That's fine. That's great. But up to a certain extent of value, because of the amount of bounty you're putting on your own head, it's not worth that risk. I mean, honestly, like you were saying, Rob, it's honestly just going to get to that point eventually. And inevitably, that's the word I was looking for. I was trying to get to Christopher Norland in the chat. I wanted to get that thought out real quick. He says, I'm sure they have taking security measures on their own and aren't carrying more than a few thousand in crypto on their person. Yeah, but that's not stopping anybody from, saying send it to, like, yeah, exactly, like a hostage situation or something. Like, yeah, it's a lot harder to kidnap somebody and get paid when you're saying drop a suitcase of unmarked bills in New York, Times Square, and no, now let's just send some, Monero here and I'll release your daughter type shit.
Yeah,
that's what's gonna happen.
Well, there's there's a company here that's starting a franchise that I actually think it will be really good for crypto. It's called Safe Haven Vaults. And what they are is they're personal bank security vaults, safe deposit vaults, but it's private. And the one here, they have 1 or 2 locations in Utah, but they're going to be franchising nationwide. There's no AML KYC. They accept crypto. It's biometric to get in and so the security is amazing. So you have to have a code to get into the main door, just to the building, and then you have 24/7 access, unlike a normal bank deposit box. And then there's biometric iris scans, and they still have a live guard there at the same time.
Okay.
And to me, I think that's the kind of thing that I think will be very important for crypto going forward. Where you put your own, crypto in your own safe deposit box like that. And so it's a very interesting concept. And I think it'll be, private safe deposit boxes like that and things like that are going to be what will help in the future if you don't want it. So there's options that are out there, but you need to think about those options.
What scares me though about that retina security type biometric shit is like I use my phone to like unlock my screen with my eyes. So, like, Samsung already has my retina just ready to go, like, Mission Impossible fucking, they're just going to print contact lenses, put them in, and walk into that bank or whatever the case may be. So, like, biometrics to me isn't as secure as, like, I want it to be. I think of like how many times I've just given that information away. My fingerprints are probably on record because I was arrested in Texas. So there's that. They already have my fingerprints, so that biometrics fucking shot. And then my eyes, Samsung has it because of my screen lock, so that one's shot. And DNA doesn't really do much because, well, you could just fucking take a sample of my hair or blood or whatever, and then there you go. I don't have to be there. So, like, a lot of that stuff to me feels like a lot of security theater. It's like, it's all more cumbersome than it really is secure.
Right, but with the safe haven vaults, for instance, right, they don't take your name.
That's interesting.
You get a number. So because they are not doing, they're not legally obligated to do AML KYC because they're not a bank. So they do have some basic rules of things that they don't allow. They don't allow drugs. And they do use drug sniffing dogs. So don't put your weed in their boxes.
Dogs can't smell LSD is all I'm saying.
Exactly. But so in that case, right, this is where, and I think most security professionals, at least the ones I did talk to, say security is really a spectrum. So it comes back down to how much are people going to work to try to get something from you.
Right.
So if, and I think a lot of like, anarchists and voluntarists, they kind of imagine themselves being this, public enemy number one of the state, but the state doesn't even know who they are, and I'm like, okay, so you got 20 grand in Bitcoin. Maybe you should go throw it on the safe deposit box at Safe Haven. And if you don't put your name on it, use biometric. That's one thing. So if you use iris scan for that, well, maybe you use a fingerprint scan for your phone. There's different ways that I think you can accomplish, moderate security based on what most people's threat levels are. Now, if you're an activist and you're going to go to North Korea or something, you're probably going to pop up on a radar of a government actor in a little different way than if you're just like a quiet guy who likes crypto and doesn't brag about it and take pictures with him, flexing in front of his Lamborghini of his.
Don't pull an Ian Bellina.
Yeah. So to me, I think it comes down to, okay, if you're a really rich dude, don't take pictures of yourself in front of Lambos, in front of mansions, and put them on your Twitter. Okay. That doesn't make sense. I don't care if you have it, but maybe bragging about it, it's like you thumb your nose at criminals, thumb your nose at the government. I mean, you're more likely to bring pain upon yourself, and make yourself a target.
Yeah, be
You
humble.
know,
Don't gloat about your wealth, and that's the thing. I think like the mentality of the voluntarist and the anarchist is also, if I help my neighbor has no reason to steal from me.
right.
And that's a lot like again with the voluntarism and the concepts of, and I think that's a lot like a lot of the crypto too, like the community in crypto is help our neighbors so we can all come up together, and there's not so much like the greed mentality doesn't really benefit so much in crypto. It does in fiat, in dollars. Greed, if you come into crypto with greed, you will make dollars, but you have lost, and most people have lost satoshis doing it over time. So it's not really beneficial in a Bitcoin economy, I think, to have that, you know, mentality. And it says, oh, Roy, you have a lot of letters before Roy, so I'm just going to call you Roy. Roy in the chat says, and those are some of the reasons why they'll push for the RFID chip in the hand as a superior security measure. RFID chips are made in Hawaii. Interesting. Didn't know that. Or made by Huawei. I'm sorry. Made by Huawei. That was a stoner. Anyway, yeah, I don't believe that necessarily. I thought that that was true too until I talked to John McAfee. So again, I was talking earlier to Rob about this. I was on that cruise with John McAfee and Brock Pierce and a bunch of other people. And at that time, I was talking to John and Brock at the bar about Brock has this little chippy thing in his hand. And I was just like, dude, I want one of those. And we were talking about it. And John was just like, you know how easy it would be to just put something in a doorknob that could read, write, or just break it? Like, I could put in a little tiny EMP in a doorknob. You go to turn the doorknob, EMP goes off. I just broke your stupid implant. Good luck getting into your house tonight. I'm like, all right, good point, good point. Or if it is a signing measure, you could put a reader into a doorknob. You go to turn the doorknob reads it, then you can copy it, clone it, go up to my door when I'm not home and touch it with the key you just copied from me touching. So, I mean, a lot of it, I don't know how we're going to see a form of security to that level of where it's just not hackable.
I think it's going to be a solution of multiple variables, you know, 2 and 3 FA for certain things, but maybe 1 FA for lower level things. I think, you know, if you look at the chip stuff, and this goes back to the mark of the beast and the conspiracy theorists from 25 years ago, they've been talking about, it started with Digital Angel. If you go look up some Google archive kind of stuff, that was one of the first chips. Now that goes back like 20 years. You know, that they were figuring out, you know, implantable RFID kind of things. But I think when they were looking at all this mark of the beast kind of stuff, or these technologies that people called mark of the beast, that was before the proliferation of cell phones. And I think McAfee in this case might be correct. Well, you know, it's a much bigger deal and a much more invasive thing when you go and, you know, forcibly, if you believe the conspiracy theorists and, you know, all that stuff in the Bible and all this, but if you believe that, you know, forcibly rounding up people to inject something in their hands, just not going to go over very well with a lot of people. But if you incentivize people to voluntarily take a smartphone and download all these tracking devices, dude, why would you go with option A when option B makes them feel like they're in control? They'll actually start putting all this information out on the web about themselves voluntarily. You know, and so to me, I don't even think that whole forced, you know, RFID thing's even going to happen anymore. There's no point to it. It's a lot easier just to get people to give it away for free. Yeah. And you don't have to even force them.
Like I was saying, you don't have to get your kid chipped by the government, or the government doesn't have to chip your kid when you're going to buy a very expensive chip and put it in your kid's hand, all for the government. That's why, that's why they're incentivized. I remember when I was younger, I was maybe like 10 years old. I couldn't touch a computer without an adult over my shoulder. You weren't allowed. Like, you couldn't go on the internet as a kid because there was fucking weirdos on the internet and you're an innocent child. And now, mainstream media has flipped that mentality on the adult's perspective of things, and now every child is on the internet without supervision.
Not mine.
Well,
but
near every... You know what I mean, though? You know what I mean.
But here's a great thing. There's a solution to that. And I just talked to the owner the other day. If you have a kid and you want them to have the access to a phone, it's called Gab Wireless. It's a startup. And they basically have created a smartphone for kids that doesn't have any browser, doesn't have any internet. It's locked down. So it is a smartphone. It has it has a camera, a calculator, phone and text, but non-picture text. So you can't sext with it or do any of that sexting with it. And it's a really good option. And I'm not here to shill them. I don't get anything out of that. But, that's one of those options that are available now of a company trying to solve a problem with that. So you can still have, for my kids, I'm concerned. I have 4 kids. And so, that's one of those things. And we're very, looking over their shoulder and limiting screen time, because I do know that there are a lot of creeps out there on the internet. And so we said this might be a good option for our kids or your kids, if you had kids, that where they can actually have a phone that's safe. So you can still call them, you can still text them, but you don't have any of that, other problems with pictures. You don't have any problem with social media, and you don't have any pictures with, getting into internet things. So there are options out there now for, there's a solution for that, I think. And I think this is where technology, I always say technology is a tool that can be used for good or evil. And I think that, we need to view it as just a neutral thing, and work on how we can leverage, technology for good and not evil.
So where do you see like a use case, or maybe even like a first implementation use case for an altcoins blockchain? So obviously there's multiple blockchains that exist that have multiple scripting languages for multiple use cases, from like Ethereum smart contracts to Bitcoin's totally underutilized timestamping. Like, holy shit, I don't know why more developers don't build on top of just for that reason alone, but do you see any like blockchain implementation that could be utilized today to like start solving problems that exist today, or is everything still too early beta to even try to on-ramp an industry into?
I'm not sure that I'm going to be the best person to answer that, because I kind of have a lot of opinions that people consider are heretical in crypto, right? And I get myself in trouble because I got opinions, but I'm not sure that there is a huge market demand for smart contracts platforms in general that are public, like public ledgers like Ethereum, or some of the other ones that are out there. I believe that, and where I come back from is, and I try to view things as an entrepreneur. I'm not a developer. I'm an entrepreneur, and so when I look at something like, as an entrepreneur, when we first launched our token, and we were an ETH token, and I quickly realized that, well, dude, this doesn't make any sense to me. I have no control over the foundation network. I have no influence over that network. It's inconsistent on pricing, like surge pricing, congestion pricing, things of that nature. I go, as an entrepreneur, I can't build on that because I can't plan for it. And so to me, I believe that, the future, I think a lot of big corporations, especially in entrepreneurs, are going to build their own platforms because they can at least design them in a way that makes sense for them. And they have some control over, because people in corporations tend to be more risk adverse than even entrepreneurs. But as an entrepreneur, you want to be able to at least create something that you have some influence over, that you can know that it's gonna function the way you want it to over the long term. And I think that's really hard with smart contracts platforms, at least the way they are today. And so I guess I'm not sure there's a demand for them. I think that you're going to see a lot of private projects, or maybe like, for instance, I could see industry-based projects like the logistics industry. Maybe there's a reason why all the major shipping companies might want to create a blockchain that's semi-permissioned, that they can then interact with each other. I see maybe that's probably going to be where things are going to go. I see maybe a public blockchain, and I don't know why someone hasn't done this yet from smart contracts, but like LegalZoom, right? Like, to me, that would be an interesting use of smart contracts, is actually legal contracts. And I don't know of any startups that are doing that yet. But the question is, is there a future for these things? I'm not sure, as an entrepreneur, that I like the uncertainty of building on blockchains that have weird, wonky management. And then, think of it this way: when a good entrepreneur is going to go through and look at all the different possible threats, right? And they're going to try to mitigate those threats to their business, basic SWOT analysis, and so what are the threats to your project? And one of those things would be, well, what happens if the community on the blockchain that we're going to build on, whatever blockchain, decides to, just because they're having some kind of weird territorial pissing match, decide to fight, and then they shred each other, and then the community fractures, and then development, maybe the best developers go to another fork or whatever. And you see that with a lot of the projects now. I'm not going to pick out names, but so the question is, as an entrepreneur, that's a threat, and I'm not sure the best way to mitigate that threat when you're dealing with decentralized smart contracts platforms.
I got you. It's right here. Give me 1 second and I'll tell you. Alright, so what they're going to do is we're going to see intranet of blockchains, man. All these companies like you built on top of Ethereum, well, they're just going to take everything that Ethereum has done and take it. Just do it themselves and have their intranet of this centralized blockchain with servers decentralized all over the place, but it's still centralized technology where if they want to implement an update, they don't got to jerk off the developers. They just tell them what to do or they get fired. So everything that Ethereum has done, everything that Tron has done, everything that Cardano has done is really meaningless without patents, intellectual property bullshit, like an enforcement of all of this, because it's open source technology that could just be reverse engineered if not, and people will take it and make it their own. So you'll see a lot of AOL version intranet type blockchain being built. They won't be for us, they won't be for anybody else to use, but it will be for that company to use for that industry. And that alone, and it won't be something that we can invest in or tokens that we can hold in that sense. What is it, like JP Morgan coin? I ain't going to be able to get anything. I ain't going to be able to hold or use that, but it doesn't mean that I won't somehow in a weird way use it in the back end when I move money somehow through a bank. So I see that's how it might be solved. It's going to be just copycat it, copy paste.
Well, and and this is interesting as I come back as an entrepreneur, and we looked at all these issues a lot when we started developing TUSC as well. And how do you market and build a decentralized project, but how do you grow it and market it like a startup? And that's a really, really tough problem to solve. And I think the problem is, if you look at most of the major projects out there on CoinMarketCap or CoinGecko, is that they don't really even have a good plan to get to market. They don't really have, marketing salespeople for a lot of those projects even trying to get to market. And it's like a lot of it is this, I think it's a flaw in a lot of engineers' thinking, is that build it and they will come. And build it and they will come is a myth. And it's a common myth among engineers, but it's bullshit. It doesn't work. You can have the best technology known to man, and it may solve somebody's problem, but if you don't have a plan and a methodology and a way to get that plan, the solution to somebody's problem in front of them, you're not going to gain traction. And I think this is where a lot of the crypto projects out there, I think it's going to change a lot in crypto over the next 2 years. And I think the projects that start looking at, how they get in front of customers and how they actually solve problems, real world problems for people, I think those are the projects that are going to start rising to the top. I just think it's inevitable. At some point, it can't be just, we made something that's cool that might have potential. At some point, you have to have actual customers. Yeah,
exactly. I think that's a lot of the problem people have with certain blockchains with not marketing. When you look at like Dash, it's funny. So when you look at Dash as opposed to Decred, Dash and Decred, Dash's marketing is amazing. Like, Dash has great marketing, and Decred has great, amazing tech. I fucking love Decred for that. Like, that hybrid proof of stake, proof of work. Like, wow. But they don't market at all. Like, you have Dash partnering with like cannabis companies, Dash with colleges, and Dash Cashier, but like Decred doesn't market, and people have problems with that. Me personally, I'm on both sides of the fence. I like to say, build it, they will come. If the tech is great, whatever, it'll get appreciated for what it is. But then again, I'm on the other side of the fence where, well, if it's so great but nobody knows it exists, who will really use it? And I've always said that Bitcoin has the worst marketing team in cryptocurrency. It'll always have the worst marketing team because it has no marketing team. And I think I am like Bitcoin marketing team, so it sucks, guys.
But it's going to be a problem at some point, and here's why. I tell people, out there that are pushing crypto that, everyone I talk to now over the last year, I talk to normie people on the street all the time. Everyone I know has heard the word Bitcoin.
Yep.
I have not met one person in the last year that had not heard the word Bitcoin. And you know what, though? Every one of those people, when I ask them what do they know about it or think about it, they're like, oh, it's a scam. So it's not a lack of knowledge that it exists. It's now, okay, it's not that people don't understand it, but they do know about it, and it's got a negative brand at this point.
I've coined the phrase mass awareness, right? We have met mass awareness. Everybody is aware of Bitcoin. We're on our way to mass interest, where we'll see everybody be interested in it once they become aware of it. And then that will beget mass adoption. But then I kind of had a trip, went down a rabbit hole, thought about it, meditated on it, and I came out of it believing Bitcoin will never, ever become mainstream. Ever. That would require the U.S. military, with all their nukes, demanding every country use Bitcoin, BTC, to buy oil instead of the petrodollar. And that will never happen. So Bitcoin can't become mainstream without governments enforcing its use as a currency within their nation's borders. So that's where I have like that I don't see that happening. But independently on the internet, I believe the internet will see Bitcoin or cryptocurrency mass adopted. But in reality, brick and mortar, physical world, me taking my Ledger wallet, they're talking about how shitty the ledgers are in the chat, to a store to buy something, I don't think that's going to happen, guys.
I don't think it's going to happen with Bitcoin, but I do think certain projects will be successful, and I'm kind of, I'm bullish on what we're doing. But I think the main thing is what you got to look at is if, right now, even with Dash and some of these other projects, they're not focused anywhere, right? And a lot of people you see people like trying to, and you do this too, but let's talk about the Uber driver and tip this waitress here, and that's great for mass awareness. But the fact is, most people in this country, at least we're in the United States, most people in this country do not have a recognized problem with their current payment methods. And to me, if you're going to get adoption for buying and selling goods and services, you need to start with folks that have a recognized problem with current payment methods. And there's 7 industries that really kind of have that problem now. And if you're not focused on those industries, I don't think you have a chance of getting adoption.
I try with 2. I talk to sex workers. I talk to cannabis industry workers. But I do like that you brought that up about, like, basically, you're right. Me talking to the Uber driver and giving them some Bitcoin or whatever is completely fucking pointless, honestly, in the real scheme of things. But what I do find interesting is when that conversation, and Uber drivers bring this up, my waitress, all these people bring it up, like, why should I? Why is it? I'm like, but it's not for you. You don't need this. There's no use for you to have Bitcoin. You're a waitress. You make money. You live in America. You're all right. You don't need Bitcoin. But there are people around the world that do need it, that have no alternative option or means of use of transmitting currency. This is all they have. You can contribute to them by using it too. By holding it and using it where you can, when you can, and how you can. It's almost like giving $1 to the Red Cross, but the whole dollar goes to the market value of the people that are using it at the end of the day. So when I put my dollars into Bitcoin, it's not so much for me, it's so much for the people that are using it without any other alternative means. It's almost a charitable cash burn of some sort, where if you're going down, I'm going down with you. Like, we're all going to use this together type things. So like Bitcoin to me isn't so much like an investment opportunity as is like a like donation or contributive wealth distribution. If I put my wealth in this system and you do too, it distributes across the market cap. All Satoshis rise. It doesn't work the same with banking. It doesn't work the same with fiat. So it creates a different greed mentality. But if people are stuck on that mentality, you can take that to their advantage and say, well, now you can invest on helping others. So if you invest in this currency, this technology, by helping others when you're investing, and it works out, and it does help them, you can gain an interest in your fiat that you want to cash out in. It'll gain value because of your contribution. So you can contribute and you can earn at the same time. You can feed that greed with charity. And that's a different perspective of how I look at using Bitcoin. Because it was never about the money to me. It was always about like the lack of money. Like, I think Bitcoin and cryptocurrency in general, the concept of this whole thing could just destroy the whole ideology of money. Like, money doesn't even need to exist. We don't need money. It's because of greed that we have to have a way to tally to make sure people aren't gluttonous.
I think people are always going to be gluttonous if they can be.
No,
But
I don't
I think it's
believe
human.
so.
I think it's human nature. I think there's always I think we're hardwired to want to be safe. And
Products of our environment, bro. Nature versus nurture. We have been bred by governments over hundreds of years, thousands of years, to be like this. This isn't how life should be in a first world, like, technologically advanced civilization. But we're stuck in our old breeding ways, of tribalism mentality, and the government has found a way to monetize that mentality and therefore incentivize the growth of it. If we could shake that government and start using governance, I think that I see a great combination of anarchism and voluntarism having a baby with crypto.
Well, I certainly hope that at some point it comes to that, but I do believe that will only happen in the United States when we have a major collapse, and then people lose faith in the current governing system. And I think that's inevitable. I believe. I don't have a crystal ball on when that'll happen, but if your livelihood's dependent on an organization or a government $23 trillion in debt, you're going to have a bad time, and that generally only ends one way, historically speaking. My only hope is I see crypto as a potential insurance policy that if we gain traction in certain niche markets for buying and selling goods or services, and that infrastructure is out there, even in just one industry, that if the US dollar does collapse at some point, then that will act as a kind of like a safety net. Bitcoin as well. But I don't see that there's going to be widespread adoption unless, one, people already have faith that something has been proven to work as a replacement for currency.
Yep.
And two, when their existing currency no longer functions the way it has been and they lose faith in it. And to me, that comes back down to, is there a recognized problem or not? And right now the US dollar doesn't have a recognized problem. It works everywhere in the world. It's the most liquid currency on the planet and ever in history. It's a really good store of value, even though there is a definite devaluation of it constantly, but it's generally it's consistent, right? It's not fluctuating. We know it's going to devalue at this rate because it depreciates at a consistent rate. So, I mean, that's still, a lot better than going up or down 20% in a day. So as both a currency and store of value, there's nothing better in the history of mankind so far than the US dollar has been.
It's predictably independable. You can't depend on it, but you can predict how you can't. I like that. That's funny.
But it's true. I mean, if you think about it, it's going to devalue. But you do know that like dollar will generally hold its value to a week or two or a month or 6 months from now. Loses a percentage or point or two a year, maybe. So it just is what it is. But I think I think getting adoption is still a critically important thing, and I think that I think we have a way to do that.
It's really, I think this is my opinion. I don't have numbers to back this shit, but I think what is really helping push mainstream adoption is these WannaCry type viruses, these malware thing or whatever they called. What the hell do they call it? It's ransomware. That ransomware shit, did you see it? Got like an airport or something the other day, and all the screens got locked up, and on the screen it was like, we have hacked your system, send us Bitcoin type shit. Mm-hmm. When WannaCry was going around, that was like 2016 or something. I remember every company in Europe was buying Bitcoin just to have it in case they got hit, because Bitcoin was climbing so fast that they didn't want to have to buy more of it later to just send to a hacker. So they started actually investing in it just in case they got hacked. Now that's like, I don't think anybody saw that as a use case for Bitcoin. This is use case being, I would say, like a security tool, or security currency. The security companies that these corporations hire to protect their data has advised them to use and hold Bitcoin in case they get hacked. Now you have these companies holding this asset without looking at it. It's not an investment. It's not it was put in a box in the basement in case some asshole comes in and hacks these systems. They don't have to look at that box. And I think that's an interesting way to see mainstream adoption without it actually being used as currency or digital gold, or even being coded on top of the asset itself. Is just weird to see, like, these ransomware things pop up, and now Bitcoin has a whole new use case. It's almost it's a digital version of exactly what we were talking about earlier, where it's just like kidnapping your kid. Well, I got all your kids' photos now. Send me some Bitcoin, or they're all going to be deleted.
Well, that's kind of ironically, that is actually one of the things that we're using as a selling point with TUSC. So we've been talking to insurance, or we're kind of talking about it as an insurance policy against debanking. So, we're focused on, at least the gun industry is our first target market. And we've been talking to retailers a lot. We have a lot of interest from retailers in that space. And they already have a huge recognized problem with current payment methods. They're already locked out of, it's hard enough just to get a bank account if you're a lawful, FFL dealer, but they're completely locked out of almost every third-party payment system out there. PayPal, Venmo.
Oh shit, I didn't know that.
Square, Stripe, all of them. And it's not because of laws, it's just policy, it's politics, it's terms of service. And in fact, BitPay and Token Pay and Coin payments in their fine print also prohibit gun retailers. So even on the crypto side, there's not a lot of options. So what we've said first, and this is my sales pitch to like kind of gun retailers, look, you're probably not going to get a lot of sales out of the gate, but this is a backup system, so you can still do business if you lose your current merchant processing system. And we make it, and we present it in a way and show them that there's really no risk. And that actually has been going over very well. And because in the beginning, there are not going to be a lot of sales. It takes time to get traction. But if we get them on board and understand that it is an insurance policy, a very, very, a free insurance policy, really, that makes sense to them. Because people that have a recognized problem do not have a problem understanding the value of crypto to them when it's presented to them.
Facts.
And the key is you got to focus on industries and focus on people that have a problem. Grandma does not have a problem with her Visa card working at Walmart. And if you try to tell grandma, and you need to now use this very complicated system where you can lose your money if you don't remember your key, and it costs a lot of money and it's really slow and clunky, well, that's dumb. That's dumb, right? You're not going to sell anybody that. Who thinks that's a good sales pitch? But if you go in there and say to grandma, you're not going to have to use this very often, but this is a really good thing in case you lose all your money, or in case this is an insurance policy, in case all those other things don't work anymore, or your social security check stops coming. Now grandma's going to perk up.
Right.
And I think it's just a different approach. You got to talk to people that have a recognized problem with traditional banking and payment processing, and that's where you got to start with crypto. And if a payment and I can tell within like 2 minutes of talking to a developer, like if I think they got a good chance of getting somewhere with their project, and I say, well, how are you going to get to market? Well, we just have a really good product. I'm like, you're done. You're not going to get anywhere with that, or it's going to be really hard for you to get anywhere with that just because you have a good product.
Right.
Because it's, and I always like to ask, who's your customer? And I always like to use the word customer over user, because investors, in my opinion, aren't customers. I know a lot of people will conflate that someone who invests in Bitcoin is a user. I don't think it is. I think a user is someone who's actually willing to pay to use it, or someone who's willing to use it for buying and selling goods and services, which is what its intended, application is. And unless you have people that are willing to pay money to use this system, and you got to think of people as customers. You need customers for crypto. And to me, if you can't even identify what your ideal customer for your crypto project looks like, I don't think you're going to get very far.
Yeah, well, with the gun stores, I could even see them having a crypto ATM in the corner where you could put cash in, you could top up your TUSC mobile wallet walk over to the counter, buy your goods and services, get your fucking gun and ammo, go back home, and now the shop doesn't have to worry so much about a week's worth of cash sitting in the back room when they have it in their wallet, and the private key isn't even on site. So there is, so little incentive to, come in and try to rob the place in general. I know it's a gun store. It's ironic that they get robbed a lot, it's whatever. But then they also make money on top of the inconvenience, because it used to be an inconvenience to try to accept money with their credit card or bank card, right? So you can't take your debit card. PayPal don't work. That machine over there, that'll take it, and then it will give you crypto. So now they're making money on the transaction on the machine, and they're saving the convenience of using the cryptocurrency at the register.
So we're already talking to, well, you know who they are, but we already got a ATM network we're already talking with. So for that exact reason. I won't
say it, but as soon as you said you know who they are, I was like, oh, I do know who they are.
Yeah, you do know who they are. They're actually local to me as well. So yeah.
I love those guys, man. They're awesome. I saw them in Vegas.
Yeah. And so yes, we already got everything pretty much dialed in on where we're going to go over the next year. And this is what we're doing. So there's a body armor company that's going to be one of the first companies to accept TUSC, because we're actually going to mainnet next week, by the way. So we're going mainnet on the new blockchain next week, and then we're hoping to have our first payment gateway done by probably right after the first after New Year's. And so the cool thing we're doing is our payment gateways are downloadable, like a plugin for WooCommerce. We're going to do a WooCommerce one first. We're already working on it. And that way there's no third-party payment gateway to get in the middle that, can be a problem. But with this, I'm not going to say who they are, but we haven't made the announcement yet. But there's a body armor company, and their body armor is expensive. So they're going to be accepting TUSC. And what they're going to do is they're going to give their customers like a discount to pay them in TUSC. Because right now, like lawful gun dealers and things like body armor people, they're paying really, if they can get a merchant account, they're paying extraordinarily high fees, anywhere from 5-6% in some cases, plus monthlies, which is asinine, because they're considered high risk by banks.
Right.
So with TUSC, there's only a flat 0.5% transaction fee. There's no surge pricing or anything like that. So it's always going to be a consistent price, whatever. So we developed TUSC to work for retail from day one, to give that kind of experience that people can bank on. If you say it's going to be $5 and whatever here, or it's going to be $10 tomorrow, we developed the network to be fast and very consistent with the normal credit card processing kind of user experience. So, but what we're going to say is, look, if you go in and tell how we plan to get adoption, we're focused on niche industries, just like Amazon started being a bookstore for 5, 6, 7 years before they went into music, right? They only focused on books. They had a plan to go into other industries, and so do we. But we're going to focus on industries initially that we know and like, that have a recognized problem with payment processing, and present the crypto as a solution for them. But what we're saying is, since we're only 0.5% transaction fee, if you give, say, your customer a 2% discount and you're paying 6% transaction fees, if you convince your own customers to pay you in TUSC, you're actually making more profit on every single sale. And since we created the blockchain to be fast, it's a delegated proof of stake. It's not proof of work. We felt that DPoS was going to be better for a retail environment. Our block times are 3 seconds. Confirmation times right now on the test network are averaging 1.5 seconds. So it's transaction speeds are equivalent to a Visa kind of experience, which we felt was necessary for trying to get retail adoption. And then we're going in and just saying, look, to the customers, we're like, look, this solves your problem. This is an insurance policy at first. We're going to market you through we have a merchant directory we're setting up, and we'll announce that you're coming on board, so you get free marketing. The first 100 retailers are going to get a small token allotment for their own risk. And we're going to teach them everything they need to do to onboard to retail into their business. It's not just like get a wallet. We're going to be like, okay, this is how you deal with the accounting. And so I have a meeting with a company that deals with crypto taxes, because I used to own a retail store too. So I know all about the things that are going to be concerning to a retailer. And we're like, okay, so we're going to go in with basically the whole basket. And for a customer support standpoint, even though we're a decentralized project, one of the things that we did with TUSC that's a little different is we created this thing called the marketing partner. And no other crypto has done it this way, is that we have completely on-chain governance. There's no company, no CEO for TUSC at all. It's just, we actually are going more decentralized because once we swapped over from our ERC20 token to the new blockchain, we became decentralized. And so what we said is, okay, but how do you market a decentralized project like a startup in an efficient manner?
Right.
And Dash got close, and we liked how Dash did some things. We didn't like how Dash did some other things. So what we did is we created a term limited and elected partner called the marketing partner, which is a startup company that gets a piece of the block rewards, and their whole mission is to grow the network. So TUSC MP is the first marketing partner for the TUSC network, or TUSC, and it doesn't have any say over governance. It doesn't have any votes. It doesn't have any power over how the networks run. That's all done on chain like a normal DPoS. And then the marketing partner, the first term is 5 years, and then it's every 3 years after that. And then every year the marketing partner has to give a report on what they did, what they spent the block rewards on, and their job, and they can be fired at any time. So the network can still fire them if they're doing something stupid. But we felt that that way you get to have the benefit of people that want to run like a startup. So it's not like, so with like Dash and some of these other things, yeah, you can put in proposals, there's a proposal process and all that kind of stuff. But when it comes to marketing, you really need to have a really concerted marketing plan. You really have to have that not done by management, by committee. You need to have a marketing team that understands marketing and growth like a startup, and they need to be able to not be micromanaged. And Dash kind of does, they kind of do that micromanage. So now TUSC still also has a worker proposal fund too. So people can put in proposals if they want to do something else. Like if they want to do some other marketing thing, if someone, if they ad hoc wanted to do something, they could put in a proposal and we can still vote for that. That's a separate thing. Like we still have all that capability like Dash does. But the marketing partner's job is to grow the network like a startup. And I don't know any other cryptos that have that. At least when we started doing, there wasn't any that we could find. And so we think that, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a sales and marketing guy. I'm not a developer. So that's how I view things. And so that's what we're doing differently with TUSC. The technology is not that much different than any other crypto. The focus is, how do we get that crypto in front of people whose problems TUSC will solve? And to me, that was the most critical piece. But the governance piece, where we have this marketing partner position or feature, that's kind of the big thing that we did differently, yet we're still decentralized. The minute we went swap from our token, we did our token swap in October. And the minute we went from ERC20 over to TUSC, I shut down the LLC that we had for our original token project. And now I don't control it. And the minute we bring the block producers in next week on mainnet, I have to put, everything's politics. I have to, it's like EOS, right? I have to then now convince and persuade the network to do what I want them to do, or if I have a good idea, or, I have to sell them on it.
How does that work legally now? Like, so, because I guess I gotta talk to Charlie about this too, even a little. Like, but creating a technology and even then just walking away. What's his name? I can't remember his name now. I'm an asshole. The guy who created the 3D printing blueprint for the handgun. He did the same thing, but yet he's being prosecuted for creating a technology and then walking away. He open sourced a technology. That's it.
Well, that was Cody Wilson.
Cody Wilson, thank you. Yes.
Right. So they actually settled out. So the thing that they were doing is they got an injunction. He wasn't, getting in legal trouble for that. They were just being sued as a company, because as a company, they were open sourcing it and they were giving away the plans for the 3D. Basically, they're actually not 3D printed with the printers, but they were actually they have a 3D mill that mills 80% lower. So what they were doing is giving away the CAD drawings for how to do it. And they were giving them, basically selling those plans or the files to use a little mill to mill out like 80% lowers.
Right.
And so, yeah, your state is the one that's the main one going after him too. It's kind of funny, but they were allowed, there was a deal where they allowed to, and then it got appealed again. So it's still in flux. But I think
this is a small flex. I was, but again, along that lines though, of like something more larger and. Yeah.
Well, I think the legal aspect of this hasn't been tested with any crypto.
Thank you.
If you think
Yeah.
about it, right?
No, you're
I
right.
mean,
None of it has.
no, not I don't
EOS
know
just
of
paid
any.
$27 million on a $4 billion ICO that was the most illegal fucking money raising event in the history of humanity, bro. They raised $4 billion fucking dollars in a year, and they only paid $27 million in fine.
And now they're completely
What?
good to go forever, which is amazing. But then you go look at Telegram,
Fuck.
and they're getting shut down, right?
And Facebook's Libra and shit is completely shut down. And
So I don't understand those decisions, because even with Ethereum, right? I mean, it's interesting. But here's the thing, though. Block One is a company. So I mean, it's not like it was put out there as a thing. As an anonymous.
Block
software.
One isn't EOS. That's where I get the thinking, right? So like, maybe.
But Block One's the one that did. But Block One is the one that did the ICO.
Okay, you're right.
So to me, you do have a centralized the authority that did an ICO. So the question, I think the bigger thing is, so for instance, let's say we didn't do an ICO. I mean, we've never sold a token. Even when we were a token, we never sold a token. We never sold coins. I've never sold anything. So we're not a security. We never hyped it. In fact, in our Telegram group, I mean, we started 2 years ago almost. It'll be 2 years ago in a month. Because we started on New Year's Day on 2018. So it'll be almost 2 years. And we never sold anything. And in fact, in our Telegram group, we said, because our token was called original crypto coin. Yep. And we said, OCC is not an investment. We put that in our Telegram because we didn't think of it as an investment, and we weren't selling it. We gave it away via faucets. So, we didn't hype it or anything like that. So we didn't steal anything. We didn't scam anybody. But the question is, I think the bigger question legally is, how immune is a decentralized self-governed project from legal liability? And I don't know if that's been tested in court yet on any significant way. No. So here's the thing, like Bitcoin, it's hard to find Satoshi Nakamoto because, he's anonymous or the team's anonymous or whatever, right? So it's hard to find who did that,
But it's easy to find the miners. It's easy to prosecute them and say that they're
sure.
liable for complicity in the technology that's making fucking child porn on the blockchain possible. Now all the miners are now complicit in child porn. Like that's the shit I start to like, or nodes, operators or developers that are public, like the core devs. They can prosecute these people and these entities of the side of Bitcoin.
Well, yeah, and I mean, even with TUSC, like we've never hidden anything, but we've also never thumbed our nose at government. We worked really hard. I mean, before we even launched, and I didn't know a lot about securities laws, but back in 2018, or beginning of 2018, I mean, I called the SEC and talked to an SEC attorney on the phone for an hour myself personally. I didn't have a lawyer. I talked to a bunch of lawyers. And because we were looking at different ways that I didn't want to be an illegal security. I mean, that was like day one. How do we not become an illegal security? And one of the things that we found, and I found this, and no attorneys at the time, what I said is, I think, however, I just look at government's very consistent. Government is going to look at analog. So to me, because we gave away OCC for free, but I go, they're going to look at it like a free stock giveaway. So yes. I did a research. So I did it. So what I did is I went and looked up free stock giveaways, and back in the 2000s, 4 internet companies got busted for violating the Howey test by giving away free stock. But why they got busted is because they were making a lead gen database and they were collecting personal information like email addresses. Yes. So when we gave away TUSC or OCC back then, we didn't collect any personal information either.
Lies.
And I wouldn't have.
Oh, not lies on purpose, though. I'm sorry. I'm going to stop you right there because I want to make sure I bring this up. I talked to a really fucking interesting lawyer about this. They brought up the whole stock certificates, how we test the security thing, everything, right? And the emails. Mm-hmm. You know what? Right. You know what may not be may not be an email yet today as far as it goes, but it will be in the future. The public address that you sent the coins to. You got the receiving address from the person. You got their email address, their coin address.
But I didn't. But here's the thing: I didn't because
it's on the blockchain from sending the go. So it's possible to see on the open ledger. I had a really interesting conversation about this with free coin giveaways as stock certificates, bro. It's a weird fucking world to like think in.
So we when we created our DApp, we didn't actually make it go through anything of our so it never touched any server we controlled. It went directly to the blockchain itself, and you had to do it through MetaMask. So it was directly, people were directly interacting with the blockchain and not us.
Oh, so it
And
wasn't
so
your wallet.
no,
It was like a
had to
block
just
reward just being paid
nope.
out to an address.
Yeah. So what ended up happening is you put in you set up your own wallet somewhere else, went through our DApp, it interacted with the smart contract, and then people downloaded their own coins, and we weren't involved. We collected zero.
Interesting.
So
You
now
made the blockchain complicit.
so the thing is, so we collected zero, basically we collected zero information, nothing personal, no way to track it, nothing. We collected nothing, and we did it deliberately. We designed it so we didn't, because we did not want to be an illegal security. That's the level we went to when we launched, and it was a really fucking fine line there, right?
It's so scary,
Because
dude.
and it's funny because when I started talking to other securities attorneys before we launched, they'd never even heard about that thing with the SEC. I'm like, and it's funny because it was just like, it was in April this year, and one of the most recent guidances that said some free crypto giveaways may also be securities, and the nuance was, were you collecting information or not?
Right,
That's the big
airdrops.
nuance. And
A lot of coins I know that did airdrops as a launch ended up getting hit with a lot of legal issues, and I think one of the coins, I don't want to mention it because I don't feel like starting up shit in the community, but one of the coins creators is going through some legal issues, and it was just an airdrop, but because he gathered those addresses and he sent out all the coins himself, and they were then traded, and he ended up selling coins, and it's all very public
yeah,
ledgery.
and so I would contend based on that it is an illegal security at that
Yeah.
point. And so there the nuances are, so on the Howey test, is there an investment of money? And what happened is the federal government, or this SEC, going back, well, almost 20 years ago, clearly said that collecting digital personal information, as such as an email address, or and even making people jump through bounties and things like that, are considered basically remuneration or an investment of money, even if it's a minor amount, and thus makes it an illegal security. And we worked really hard. And here's the thing with government, a lot of it is, it's also your intention. I mean, that's what they look at, is like, did you intend to make money? Did you intend to, leverage something they gave you in
Right.
a way to make money? And then all the other things, fall into place. Did you create a secondary market? Is it a common enterprise? Things like that. Is there an
Did
expectation
you
of
pre-mine?
right? Well, pre-mine's actually, the pre-mine doesn't matter. That's not as much of an issue. I mean, it comes down to, did you sell? I look at it like this. I mean, the bottom line is with the SEC and how they look at it is, if you're a startup company, there's no way in hell the SEC is ever going to allow a startup company, other than through the Jobs Act and like certain Reg A platforms. They're never going to allow an early stage startup to sell stock to the general public. That's what it comes down to. One of the other things they look at is, did you use whatever they gave you to build what you're doing? So that was another thing we didn't do. So we already had our smart contract platform, we already had our contract built before. I mean, we had to, right, to do our thing. So we didn't even use anything that was given to us to make something. That's another thing that is one of the things they look at with making something security. Did you have the technology built, or did you have to use the investment from your ICO to build what you wanted to build?
Right.
That's a major component of it, and we didn't need any of that. So I think that's where we've at least worked really hard, especially again 2 years ago. There's been new guidance since then, of course, but we still fall safe of the new guidance. Is that we worked really hard to not be a security. We did everything that we knew at the time, and I think now we still are safe. We didn't hype, we didn't scam, we didn't sell anything, we didn't collect any personal information. And so I mean, that for us, I think, and people laughed at us, people gave us a hard time because they're like, why aren't you hyping this? We want the price to go up. Because I go, I'm not interested in the price going up. That's not why we're doing this, and it wasn't why we were doing it back then. And so we said, look, we're trying to build something to become have a real use case. And then it's interesting is that, so 6 months into our token, and we were focused on educating people and doing our conference. And we did all those things. We did everything we've said we would do in both our white papers, from the OCC white paper and the TUSC white paper. We've done absolutely everything we said we would do. And we just spent the last, well, about 13 months that we've been working on a new blockchain. So we said, hey, we think after about 6 months into having a project, I think we got a really good eye-opening and education about how projects are working, what's not working in crypto, and said, we have identified a real problem. Let's evolve our project into something really, really good, and something that's has a really good use case. And I said, as far as ERC20, I think it's garbage for payments. And I didn't like being on the Ethereum blockchain. And I said, if we're going to go forward with this new use case, we need to build our own blockchain. So everybody worked for just a share of tokens. No one got paid. We are a completely volunteer team. Everybody's got a full-time day job. It takes longer when everybody has a full-time day job, but we've done everything we said we would do, and we're about to go mainnet. So I'm really excited all the way. It's been a lot of work over the last 2 years.
So what was like one of the bigger challenges going from an ERC to its own blockchain? Was it a technical thing, or was it like something else? Was it wallet stuff? I'm just curious, like, what were some of the hardships going from where you were to where you're at?
I think as a decentralized project where you're not paying employees, I think the hardest part is finding people and getting people to do what they said they would do. It's a people problem. So if you think about it, I mean, we're just forking another blockchain. It's like anything else and modifying it. It's what I found is that with the team, and we got some really, really rock stars on our team. So I'm real excited about the people that we're working with. But what I found is that convincing people that it's worth their time to volunteer on a big project, that's the hard part. And that's been the hard part, is it just is getting the people excited and motivated and finding people that will work for that deal. If I said, look, I got this great product, it's going to take a year of your time, it's a lot of work, and there's some risks and stuff, and I can only promise you some tokens and coins for your risk and your time. What do you think about that deal? That's hard to find those people, to be honest. And so I think the other challenges are, there's a lot of assholes in crypto, especially on the maximalist side. So anytime you're doing something that they may feel is a threat to their project, or they just call you a scam or whatever. And it's really bullshit, because, it's always, they always just try to, like, there's people that are just assholes. And I'm like, my wife and I have put in over $50,000 fiat into this project over the last 2 years, just to get it to where it is, just to pay the servers and pay for the marketing that we've done and things like that, the travel that we've done. I've spent money and I haven't sold a single OCC token or TUSC coin at all. I've never made a dime off this. And I basically work on this myself full time. And I do my day job part-time. So I'm all in as far as the time commitment and stuff. But I think, finding good people to and get them interested in the project, that was really hard. Recruiting the team, keeping people going when it's slow, because it is slow. It's boring. I mean, it is just, when you're trying to build something and that's a hard thing. And then I think when you're dealing with that, and then you got the negativity coming from, some of the different crypto camps out there, I think that's like, I think that's hard to like ignore that all the time.
The tribalism, just noise.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the frustrating thing, especially when you're really trying to do some good stuff, and we're really trying to solve a problem. If I wanted to make money and be a scam, I could have walked away a year ago and sold the tokens that I had and done really well for myself for the time that I put in. I could have done that. I absolutely could have done that. But I didn't, because I really do believe in the tech. I know it sounds cliche, but I really do think that we've now got a really good, well-defined market. I think we have a really good product that will solve their problem. And I think we have a good plan to get it in front of that market. 2020 is going to be a really busy year for us. And so, yeah, we'll see if I'm right. Could be wrong, but I don't think I am, but you never know. But yeah, I think just keeping motivated to keep wanting to get out there and do that's been hard sometimes, but I'm still real excited about the project. I'm more excited now than I was even 2 years ago.
Oh wow! All right. Well, I mean, dude, look, you survived the winter. You survived the bear market. We're starting to see some market movement, and you said body armor and talking to a. They used to be everywhere I went. They were called locking gun stores, but I guess they're just like we're just a gun shop, right? Is that
Right.
they're called? Just call them a gun shop. I feel like they should have cooler names than that.
We have verbal commitments from 15 gun and gun related retailers already that
Nice.
have said they would accept TUSC on launch.
And that would be in brick and mortar. That's a
The
crypto.
brick and mortar and online.
Yeah, that's
Brick and
crypto.
mortar online.
Well, yeah, it's awesome, man.
Yeah, so it's just we need to get we still have to finish our payment gateways and things like that, but we're also doing a lot of really interesting marketing. So we just recruited an outreach coordinator. So we're going to be doing TUSC meetups nationwide. We got approximately 8 to 10 chapters or people that are interested in setting up a TUSC meetup chapter around the country. The one thing that we're doing different with our meetups is they meet at gun stores and gun ranges. So,
That is awesome.
so well, the thing is, so to us, it's kind of like almost like we're bringing crypto people to the gun world, and then that also is kind of it helps support the retailer that they'll feel more confident
That
that
is
there are people
awesome.
that are interested. So we're organizing that, and that's part of through TUSC MP.
I can't buy a gun.
No, you live in New Jersey, you can't
Not
buy
even
anything.
that, bro. I have a
Oh,
fucking
you're
felony,
prohibited.
man. Yeah, they won't
Yeah.
ever let me buy a gun. That's some bullshit. Like,
Depends on the state. Florida, I think, just restored gun. I think Florida is one of the first states to restore gun rights to felons after a certain amount of time.
of course, Florida's like, wait, we need better memes. Give all the guys guns again.
Yes, and I
I
have no
love
problem with
Florida.
that. And to me, if you're non-violent criminal, like if you got busted for weed or something, to me, I think
Right.
it's ridiculous that makes you a prohibited person. But
Well, not
that's a
even.
different
Well,
discussion.
that's funny you say that. If you get busted for weed, you can't have a gun for your protection of your home. And
Right.
if you get medical cannabis, you also cannot have a gun to protect your home.
Which it's absurd. That's
What?
absolutely absurd. That's why we got to get it off schedule.
It's
But
a fucking
hey,
lose-lose, bro.
I agree. And then yeah, I absolutely agree. And it's ridiculous. And that gets into politics. So we're organizing the meetups nationwide. We're talking, we actually have some really interesting connections in the gun space. And so
Are they
some of
worried
the
about
major,
liquidity? Just out of curiosity, I wanted to bring it up, but I didn't know when and where, how. But like, I'm sure if they got a stack of these coins from doing some sales, where can they go to liquidate? Or are you helping create like a ecosystem where they could get their
yes.
supplies and stuff?
So the main thing is right out of the gate is I mean it's like anything else. So having done the token thing, project, and then we were listed on 9 exchanges indexes with no marketing budget and no listing fee budget. I've already gone through that process before with our token. So we're having to go through the process again, but now we actually have funding to maybe accommodate listing fees. So the first exchange we're going to be on is Altilli. They're waiting on us at this point. So hopefully we'll be on Altilli in a couple weeks, hopefully by Christmas. And so we're going to be working very hard to be on all sorts of hot swap, dApps and wallets, and then, getting on exchanges a priority. Now, the one thing that we did, and we're lucky, is that there was a significant amount of tokens that didn't swap, which is interesting. And we expected that. And then we moved all those tokens that didn't swap back into the worker proposal fund. And so we actually will be able to launch with a pretty good amount of budget this year. And so what we're going to do is we'll vote. So we're going to put some of those listing fees for some of the bigger exchanges up to the community to vote on, but most of the community is very supportive of that. So depending on where we open, when we start trading, I'm guessing we'll have a couple $100,000 in the worker proposal fund, which is enough to get us on some mid-level exchanges, which we never had the opportunity to before. And so liquidity is something it's just part of a growing process, and we're going to be working really hard for that. And then on top of that, I'm going to be doing a lot of traveling next year and out there and kind of spreading the gospel. But in the gun world, it's interesting. It's very different than crypto. The crypto world is very still much pay to play, whereas the gun space is more traditional PR and marketing. I've been talking to a lot of folks in that space as well. So I got like a foot in the gun world and a foot in the crypto world. The people in the gun world that we've talked to, and I've been talking to national media, and they're going to be running a lot of stories with us. And so, in fact, one of the major outfits that is one of the biggest crypto, or not one of the biggest gun news outlets, is talking about starting their own block producer for the network. So, because they believe in what we're doing, and they definitely see it's something we need. We've also been in talks with one of the largest point of sale retailers in the gun space already, and they're basically waiting to see if we do what we say we're going to do. So it's like anything else, it's like I think of this as like a startup company, even though we're not a company. You got to grow into some of these relationships. So we'll see how long it takes to grow, but we're working on many fronts to get us out there. And I think 2020 is going to be a really big growth year for us. And I think once we get to a certain stage of growth, I think making better and more interesting partnerships will be a lot easier than it is right now. But we got a lot of seeds planted with a lot of major players, and so far the response has been amazing.
Yeah, I was just reading the chat here. Somebody brought up, I was talking about a wallet. They were like saying, do you use, what wallets do you use and stuff for TUSC?
So right now we just have the GUI wallet, which is just going to be a web responsive wallet. We after we do the first payment gateway, we're going to be working on probably a light wallet, and we've been talking to some other products. So we forked BitShares 2.0. And then we took out a lot of the smart contract stuff, so it's like a lot leaner. I don't hide what we did, right? I mean, just go on our GitHub and you can see that. There are some so Graphene is the underlying blockchain that powers like BitShares and Steem and Myota and EOS and BitShares. So we're talking to some other projects that have also forked the similar Graphene, and we're talking about maybe doing some combined light wallets that way. Our token was originally in Trust Wallet, but right now, last time I talked to Victor, they're only looking at top 100 projects right now for integration. So it's just like anything else. I mean, we're going to grow, but we have resources now, because the blockchain's self-funding. It's got a funding mechanism built into it that, transaction fees and stuff and block rewards. So we never had that as a token project before. So I think once we get rolling here in the next, couple months, if we need to have something developed or we need to hire someone, we can put in a proposal and the network can vote on it if we need to hire some devs, and things like that. So I would rather work with other people's wallets than build one ourselves. I don't want to be in the wallet building business.
Yeah.
There's risks with that. I'd rather, I don't want to be involved with that. I'd rather help someone integrate with some other wallet out there than produce that ourselves, just because that's a whole business that's a whole thing in and of itself, right? Making a really good wallet. I'd rather just be in someone else's wallet, to be honest.
Yeah, no, I can dig it. I talked to wallet companies about how even wallets make money, and it's just, dude, you might as well be an exchange, and even at that point, just A to B, then the legality behind it. Yeah, just get on a wallet that's already, working. I wanted to shout out Trust Wallet. I actually use Trust for my NFTs, so if you guys are using any non-fungible tokens on your phone, Trust Wallet's really cool for those. I wanted to segue a little bit and digress back to your exchange listing fee comment. Talking multiple six figures for mid-grade exchanges to be listed on. What the fuck kind of extortionary bullshit have we come to in this industry where this is okay now? I mean, I remember when I first started hearing about Binance and all these exchanges charging these coins, because there wasn't any other coins. When I first really got into this, there was Bitcoin and Ethereum and Doge, and that was really it. There wasn't much. And then all of a sudden, Ethereum gave birth to all these other coins, and then you start to see these exchanges go from just listing things to charging people to list things, and it's okay now. I don't understand why we're okay with this.
Well, I'm not okay with it, and I can understand. Now, I don't understand it with tokens, because if you're already set up for ERC20, it's 5 minutes to add another ERC20. It's interesting, coin payments, now they've changed, but when a year and a half ago, they wanted 150 grand to integrate OCC into their wallet. Straight up. I got the emails. They want $150,000 to integrate an ERC, another joke. ERC. I told them no, not in a nice way, because I told
extortion. That's all they're doing.
Now I think to integrate with them, it's 10 grand or so many ETH plus enough of the tokens for gas. So you got to pay your own gas too.
More exchanges, I feel will bring an end to this extortion rate, right?
Well, this is my take. What should be the business? The problem is what's the revenue model for an exchange? Since most exchanges are faking their volumes, they're not actually making transaction fees because it's fake.
True.
There are a lot of these exchanges, their business model, the revenue model is listing fees. That's their business model. And so I think we're still dealing with all the bad ICO money. So with all that ICO money, people were throwing really large amounts of money at things that had no return on investment because they were making bad allocations, and they weren't run by smart entrepreneurs that should know better. You know, I think of things as an entrepreneur. If someone says, "Oh, we'll integrate you into our drop down for 150 grand," I'm like, I don't make any money if someone does a sale with a token. I don't make any money with that. So there's no ROI. The only way that would actually possibly make sense, and it's not real, is that just being integrated in their payment gateway somehow magically jumps and spikes your market cap price, and tokens you already have go up in value. That's the only way that you get a return on your investment that way. But as a token project, that makes zero sense. But people that were making these tens of millions of dollars of raises would pay that. Mm-hmm. And so all these different payment gateways and wallets and exchanges got used to this really crazy amount of money. Now, I'll be honest, a lot of that's going away. The prices now quoted them compared to what they were 2 years ago is changed a lot. Now, I understand some kind of listing fee if you're having to integrate a custom blockchain so I expect that, you know, we have to pay their devs. They have to pay their devs a couple days or whatever to make it work and test it. I respect that, and I have no problem with that. You know, it's not like a ERC20. But on the other hand, I got quoted the other day from an exchange. I'm not going to say who they are. According to CoinGecko and some of the other metrics, their volume is faked by 90% of their volume is faked. You know, their actually trade volume, their volume is about 10% of what it's stated. They asked us, so they're about a legitimate $5 million exchange a day, trade volume, their whole exchange. They quoted us 3 to 5 BTC, but then they wanted 2% of all the outstanding TUSC. And I'm like, I don't even have access to 2% of the outstanding TUSC. I don't have it. We don't have access to it. We're not a token, you know? And I said, too, if you don't believe in our project that you would list us for free, right? You know, if you would integrate it for cheap, why do you want, you know, so many billions of the coins? So to me, it's ridiculous. And I think that graft is going away. Now, I'm not going to recommend to our community in that case, I'm not going to recommend that they pay that listing fee, because I don't believe that. Because one, I look at it like this: if the exchange is going to fake their volumes, then, you know, I don't know if I want to be associated with that exchange.
Not even that. What if they pull a Poloniex, they sell ownership, and then the new owners delist you? You know how many coins were delisted from Poloniex after paying the extortion fees? And when I saw Circle buy Poloniex, you know, I was like Goldman Sachs, Circle, I saw the whole... It's like, yo, every fucking coin that was just listed the past 12 months is going to get delisted. And sure enough, they were all delisted. And
why are they delisting them all?
Because of the whole securities ICOs issues, right? They didn't want to be responsible for helping liquidate. Because basically, once Circle bought Poloniex, it was under new ownership. They had a certain window of time to make right all the illegal shit Poloniex has done in the meantime. That's the only reason Poloniex sold. Poloniex had to, otherwise they would have been charged for fucking all kinds of criminal bullshit that they were getting away with. So they changed the ownership. The new owner, Circle, had, I think it was like 90 days or something, and that's why you saw mandatory KYC, accounts were frozen, coins were delisted, the troll box was deleted, the 2% reoccurring interesty thing was like, Poloniex isn't the same anymore, man. But then you have to, you as a, you have to worry once you get listed on an exchange, what happens when that exchange even doesn't exit but dies, you know, or legally has an issue, or, you know, and then we're so early in this space, man.
Well, one of the things that I look at now, again, I don't make these decisions in a vacuum, right? Because I don't control TUSC. I'm the guy who does a lot of these, you know, administrative things because I just am. I'm the public face. But now all these decisions have to go to the network for a vote, right? So the community has to make that decision. But of course, I believe the community will take a lot of my opinions as part of that, you know. But one of the things that I look at is, to me, I'm still even now not worried about making the price go crazy. That's not the focus of this. To me, liquidity is the focus. Like making it easier for retailers to use our project. That's, to me, is how I evaluate an exchange. So to me, I would much rather be associated with exchanges that seem to be more ethical, right? And now that we have more tools out there with like similar web traffic numbers and the trust score that CoinGecko is using, you can get a better understanding on when an exchange is being dodgy or not, right? I mean, we didn't have that a year ago. So to me, I would much rather be on small exchanges that have like really, and to me, I believe that good exchanges are going to grow over time. So, I'm a big believer in helping people that help us, but I'd much rather be on smaller exchanges that are at least running legitimate volumes, even if their volumes are tiny, because I know that long term, one, they're probably not criminals. They're more likely to be ethical. And I would rather associate with those kind of organization. It seems like especially some of the, I'm going to call out the Chinese exchanges, but the Chinese exchanges are the least ethical, or at least they have a very different view of what ethics are. But to me, it makes no sense to pay $100,000 to get on an exchange that just has fake volume anyways. That doesn't do me any good. There's very few exchanges that if you get listed on will just spike your price because all of a sudden people think that you're growing somewhere. And Binance that's a tough one too. I'm not going to pick on Binance, and yes, pretty much if you're a project you can get on Binance, you're going to be more liquid. But there's definitely, I talked to a lot of projects, and even Binance, they're a tough hombre to work with, and they still want a big part of your supply too, on top of a giant listing fee. And I don't even control that anyway, so it's not really an option for us. But I think that, I think a reasonable listing fee for something that really does help grow the project, I don't have a problem with. I really don't. Right. But I do have a problem with people, paying that to people that have no ethics, and people like that fake their volumes. That's not doing the project any good. I'd rather work with, I would personally rather work with American or European exchanges that are more regulated, because I think they're less likely to do the exit scam kind of stuff. And it's looking like, what's that exchange? It looks like this did an exit scam like yesterday or something.
Oh man, there was like two on my feed. What was the one? It was Upbit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember because Ricardo or Fluffy Pony called them Downbit, and I thought that was funny.
Even with our token project, we were listed. Now, we didn't pay listing fees, but we were on two exchanges that did exit scams.
Oh, sucks,
and you're like, and it's like, it's ridiculous.
Spencer was asking about, he asked earlier how many exchanges TUSC was on and how much liquidity is available for developers to sell and fund development. Yep, we were covering that, man. Just yep, and the DGB Popsicle IDEX. What are your thoughts on the decentralized exchanges? And I actually have that as my last question because I have to wrap things up. I didn't realize we went over.
Oh, that's good. I like talking with you. So we're only listed. Well, TUSC has never been listed yet, so we will be listed on Altcoins. So that'll be our first exchange. I am currently talking to a lot of these kind of non-custodial wallets. And we're talking to a few of them, and I think we'll probably end up getting listed on a couple of them. And personally, to me, I'm a big believer in DEXs, I like non-custodial DEXs personally, because I think custodial DEXs are really sexes.
Somebody mentioned one to me yesterday or something. I can't remember the name now, but you get your private keys and everything, and it just looks like it's like a wallet that looks like an exchange, really.
Yeah, and I think Atomic DEX, which is Komodo platforms, that they're in beta right now, I think that's something I want to be in. I'd love to be on BISC. I mean, I'm a big believer in decentralization, and to me, that I'm still, like, the anarchist in me is still a big believer in that piece. Here's the problem with that, though, and this is like the downside, is that things like the volume from like Atomic Swap wallets does not count toward your normal trade volume on like CoinGecko and CoinMarketCap. So, and unfortunately, the way we value how successful a project is right now, the main metric is your market cap, which I think is a crap metric, but that is the main metric right now. So there's this incentive in the industry that really wants you to be on these bigger exchanges because people view it as the true growth of a project. Though, to me, I would much rather be on a billion different atomic swap wallets and, decentralized exchanges
I'll be right
if I didn't
back.
have to worry about market cap. Because to
Podcast
me,
bro.
that that's more liberating as far as I can tell. But we have to play the game, unfortunately. And even like if we're going to do partnerships, well, how big is your crypto project that I'm going to work with you? If you got a 200, if you're only got a $200,000, market cap versus 10 million, your potential partners are going to view it differently. And unfortunately, that's where we are with crypto, and I think that will change in time. But I'll tell you this: our focus is to get as liquid as possible over the next 12 months. Depending on where we open, we will have enough money to get on enough smaller exchanges to get us to the growth to where we'll be able to list on bigger exchanges. But that's also kind of a growth project. You don't want to try to get on a big exchange or a mid-level exchange while you're still small,
Right,
because you'll
right.
be listed.
Exactly. So yeah, guys, I see everybody in the chat wanted to shout out Big Crypto Dave. Ask him if they'll list Bravo Coin. You funny, bro. Up, it was just a Big Shirts clone from Spencer. Identity Block, how goes it? DJ Meat Popsicle, thanks for stopping by. Much appreciated. All right, guys, I gotta get going. My godfather was here. I didn't realize it was 2 o'clock. We did a 2-hour podcast because I love talking to you, Rob, and damn, we should do this more often, man. I gotta run, but everybody, let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below. Keep the conversation going. And personally, I want to see a DEX that is as decentralized as an exchange as Bitcoin is as decentralized as a currency. We never had a real need for a true decentralized exchange because we never had true decentralized assets to exchange. Bitcoin encourages the creation of that by being Bitcoin, by being a decentralized currency in need of a decentralized exchange. When we see that DEX that is to an exchange as Bitcoin is to currency, I think that is the final nail in the fiat coffin. Just don't know when that will be. But just like Bitcoin came out of nowhere, that DEX is. We're just gonna wake up one day and it'll be there, waiting like a Christmas present. Good luck to you, Rob and TUSC. And what you say? You got like a month until your second birthday, so happy birthday in advance to TUSC over there and everybody with TUSC.network.
Thank you so much. It was a great time, as always, Ken.
Have a day, bros. Thanks everybody for tuning in and watching the entire podcast. Have a day. I fucking love you.